In today's Minded Chat, we are going to Switzerland, specifically into Bern, and I have the pleasure to have with me Thierry Goliat. Thierry is the Vice President Open Innovation and Venture for Swiss Post. Welcome, Thierry.
Thank you for the invitation, and happy to meet you, Alberto.
So, Thierry, I think we would like to know a bit more about how Swiss Post is organizing its innovation activities. As far as I know, you have two big areas. One is called internal innovation, and that is not the part that is reporting to you, and the other one is the open innovation and venture, the one that is reporting to you. Maybe you can give us, first of all, some figures about Swiss Post, so our audience can understand and assess the size of the company, and then going a bit more into broader organization of the innovation activities.
Very happily. Actually, Swiss Post is, for Switzerland, a very big organization. Might not be the case in other countries, but for Switzerland, with 50K employees, this is the third biggest employer in Switzerland. We are operating actually in different markets. So, of course, the classical letters and parcel businesses, but we are actually much more diversified in the sense we are operating in the logistics and supply chain with other kind of services than parcels and letters. We are doing cargo as well, but we are also operating in the mobility, public transport market, and we own also a bank with Post Finance, so meaning that financial services are also a big business area for us.
And talking about the organization of innovation, as mentioned, there is an internal innovation and external innovation. Can you give us some, again, at least the first level description, who is doing what?
Yes, of course. Starting by saying that both are very relevant and important. So we are not just relying on one of
Not totally,
those,
yes.
but on both, right?
The two sides of the coin. Okay, we need them.
Absolutely. So the internal innovation is really oriented about using this wonderful reservoir of employees with kind of services like our ID management. We launched about 20 years ago a kind of platform for ID suggestions open for our employees. We are getting about 1,000 IDs every year over this kind of platform. We are also managing this innovation space for workshops that we have in our head office, but also decentrally within the organization. And we are facilitating also innovation spirit inside the company by pushing some methodologies like lean startups and so on. So this is what we do on the internal innovation. On the external innovation, what we are managing with my team, we are offering actually startup screenings to our business units to connect with startups, identifying the right use cases. We are also investing in startups over a venture capital arm. We are managing research with academic partners. We are managing the outpost that we do have in San Francisco and Shanghai. So this is the kind of services we are actually offering.
Let's focus on just a second on the internal part that is interesting. I think you have an internal platform that I think is called the Postidea. That is the platform you use to gather the inputs from the employees. You mentioned about 1,000 per year of new ideas. How does it work? Is it an annual cycle or is it always open? How does it work?
It's always open to all the employees of Swiss Post, and this is quite a easily accessible platform in the sense that it's not so complex to use. We are not asking to describe the idea in a very complex form. But what we do also manage over this platform is not just the suggestion of the idea, but the entire assessment of the idea. Because you can imagine that one idea suggested is not directly assessed by the same team, meaning that you have within the organization to manage the assessment. And this is what actually this platform is doing.
And also, I believe that the same platform, again, you have several steps for qualifying the ideas. How much is typical the ratio of, again, how many of these ideas turn into something that will be implemented?
It's about 10 to 15% of the ideas that are actually really implemented at the end.
So that is quite an 8 ratio. That means probably most of the ideas more on an incremental impact. So something, just some small suggestion that might definitely improve the way things have been done, just based on the ratios.
Yes, absolutely. So your assumption is correct. Okay. Many good ideas are also suggested, but they have already been implemented in the past, as you can imagine. Yeah, so that's the reason for this ratio as well.
Okay, cool. Let's focus now on the external part. Obviously, there is the corporate venture capital arm, and if I understand, is you have off balance sheet, and I think, if I can remember, it has been launched in 2017. So, what has been? Can you provide us some figures in terms of how many investment has been done? What are your posted children in terms of investment you're particularly proud about? If you got any exits, so give us some details. And what are the areas you're particularly interested to investing again? And then I have some other questions to read you out, but let's start with that.
Yes, so we launched 6 years ago, so you were right. Let me see first that it was a kind of roller coaster. All this entire journey, it was not so easy. Can you imagine? We are in a pretty much conservative industry with logistics, supply chain. It's not so easy to launch a kind of corporate venture arm in those kind of organizations, but by chance I had the support of my management to do that. So we started pretty much small. We increased our volumes of investments and over the year, but we are still doing about 3 to 4 deals a year with kind of small tickets between 500,000 Swiss francs to 2 million Swiss francs, meaning that we are doing typically Series A. Right? Yeah. We're looking for startups globally, so not just Swiss startups. And we are what we call offering smart money in the sense that in the startup we invest in, we try really to offer, for instance, the market entry in Switzerland, or we are doing a project together. We are bringing also cash over joint projects. We are a reference customer, or we introduce the startup to our industry peers. So this is typically what we are doing. At the end, we've done in the last 6 years 16 investments, and we had 3 exits, 2 internal exits and 1 external exits. With internal exits, yes, with internal exits, these are really the kind of also strategy we have with the venture capital, which is acting as a kind of pre-M&A tool, in the sense that we do this kind of strategic investment in startups that are maybe not fitting entirely our current strategy, but might fit the strategy of tomorrow, right?
Yes.
What happened twice in the past.
Now that is interesting, the ratio. Can you disclose some of the example of the company you acquired, at least if possible, so we can also have an example of what we are doing and help us to understand. Again, it would be super interesting. Let me move one step back. This is the typical question when I'm discussing with your peers is, are you strategic or you're financial in your decision? Or are you investing on Horizon 1 or beyond Horizon 2 and Horizon 3? So you're looking more in reshaping Swiss Post in 2030, 2035, or you are trying to make investment that might have a potential application with the business unit? Because again, the big question on the table, and typically there is not a right answer to this question, but again, if you invest in something that should have a validation from the business unit, you are mostly investing close by the core business, because obviously the business unit are interested in something that is an extension of what they're doing today, while there are others that are investing a bit more beyond, ahead of business, And definitely this kind of investments are investments that do not have a potential integration with the business unit in the short term. Because again, if you invest beyond the business, probably something that will not impact them in the short term, but will impact them in the long term, because we are changing the way of doing it. And so this is the typical question. And so also trying to find some KPIs to measure these strategic versus financial, short-term versus long-term approaches. Some KPIs we have been discussing with your peers is number one is the number of investments where there is a POC or pilot of a collaboration with other business units. That's always is an indicator you're investing close by the core. M&A is a complicated indicator to track, and that's also super interesting about your example, because again, if you don't acquire your portfolio company, it doesn't mean that you have maybe a financial approach, or maybe you have a very long-term approach. Again, Robert Bosch, again, they are fund number 5, and they have acquired 1 or 2 startups out of hundreds of investments. So meaning that they have an approach that is very, very financial discipline, but also very long-term, reshaping Bosch 2035 rather than 2025. And so that's what was intrigued to understand some use case of your investments that turn into an acquisition, because maybe an indicator of how you guys are working and what has been the cases. Also, you have also other 14, 15 companies that have not been acquired that are not interesting to understand what you've done. So that is the philosophical debate that I'm having with a lot of people, and I'm still not the answer, so I'm super curious.
Yeah, no, many very interesting questions there, Alberto. So first, let me say that again, we need to grow basically at Swiss Post. We are facing many challenges, right? And the way to grow, we have to grow organically, unorganically, in different ways, over acquisition, over venture capital. So we do actually both, right? To your first question, if a startup is at the moment so strategic for a business unit, probably the best way to collaborate with this startup is acquiring directly the startup. So it's not the venture arm. And it actually answers to your second questions. We are targeting rather mid and long term. So we are doing strategic bet for the long-term development of Swiss Post. And this is why, for instance, we invested in a startup called Brink. And this startup is actually offering digital shopping lists, okay, for in-store food shopping, right? And you might think about, okay, what the hell? Swiss Post is investing in a kind of shopping list, digital shopping list app, right? But our thinking at that time was that we are actually offering these prospects, which we deliver in the letterboxes, these flyers, right? Yeah. Physical flyers, right? And the big customers of those flyers are the retailers, and especially the food retailers, right? So our thinking by investing was that we want to offer this kind of multi-channel marketing to those retailers. Let's carry on distributing flyers in the letterbox, but let's have a digital channel, right? And this is the reason, okay, the purpose behind this investment in this shopping list. At the time we invested, many people not so fully convinced, but we invested. We pushed the collaboration. We collaborate together. It works. Our clients were extremely satisfied. And then a couple of years later, we decided to acquire the startup. And this is the kind of thinking we promote over venture capital, you see? So I hope it illustrates a bit what.
No, I think it's a good example that showed that at the time of investment, there was an idea of potential collaboration. It was not both by the business, because it's probably a bit too far ahead. Then you invested and you stimulated the collaboration, and then the collaboration worked, and then it's becoming something that entered part of the current strategy. So that's interesting. And you have can you make some example of something that is very, very far ahead? Again, what you believe is definitely is more a moonshot among your portfolio investments? What is the more moonshot among your investments?
Oh, we have different kind of long shots, I would say. But in the logistics field, for instance, we invested 5 years ago already in autonomous robots for last mile deliveries in a company called Starship, which is one of the biggest.
Starship, I know, yes.
You might know Starship. Exactly. At
Has
that
been
time,
invested also by Daimler Vans or something like that.
by Daimler, absolutely, Mercedes, by Sony Ventures as well, other corporate investors, also financial investors as well. And by the way, it was also a question you had previously about, are we financial investor versus strategic investor? Actually, we are both, because what we are saying is that strategic investment doesn't make any sense if we are not also financially driven,
Yes.
meaning,
Yes.
right? And it answers to your question that some of the startups in our portfolio, they will be acquired internally, some of them not, but they are still good bets, and they will offer us a financial return on invest when we exited them externally. So you see, that's the reason why any of our investment is also financially driven. If we don't believe in the financial success of the startups, we don't invest, right?
Yes, I think the way of saying in the market is that if something is so strategic that doesn't have a financial discipline, probably is not a good idea to invest into. Because at the end, you are investing into a problem, and then the problem not difficult to be carried on. And so that's the point. Yes, that's a very, very, very good example to explain. And then just to understanding better your way of investing, you lead the investments, or there is someone else leading and you just participate?
We can do both, but typically we like co-investing.
Okay.
We like co-investing. We like co-investing also with VC as well. We think we are a nice combination as well towards the startup. So this is what we like to do. Yes.
Perfect. Yes. And again, you were mentioning that the footprint of your investment is global. And again, you already mentioned, probably it'd be interesting to understand how you find how you practice your scouting activities at global level. You mentioned that you have some outposts in some of the most typical clusters. I think you are in San Francisco. Tel Aviv is another place where you typically visit, and the other one is China with Shanghai. That probably requires something a bit more dedicated. Again, it's difficult to do in and out from China, particularly in the last few years, and particularly now.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you work? How do you structure your scouting activities?
Yes. What is quite particular in our organization is that we have really this team open innovation and corporate venture capital together, right?
Mm.
In many organizations, this is fully separate, meaning that we can leverage actually the network or the networks, because there are several networks in several ecosystems for both purpose, collaboration without any equity and really investment. So this is something particular for us, meaning that we have many sources for the identification of potential investment targets. We do have, of course, the networks we've developed over the years with incubator accelerators. In venture capital, the investor network is maybe the best sources. We have a participation of events. And of course, also in the industry, logistics and postal industry, we are also known as a big brand in the sense that we've been awarded also by the Universal Postal Union, one of these UN organizations responsible for postal industry, 6 or 7 times in a row, like the most innovative postal organization, meaning that in our industry, we are recognized as a innovative player, being able to do stuff with startups, right? And this is something that also we leverage in our industry. And what is nice as well in the supply chain or logistics is that this kind of competition for investment is maybe a bit less high than in fintech or in other fields, meaning that you can position yourself if you are smart in a way that offer you good chances to get good deals.
Do you have any other global corporates you typically work frequently along, or just as speculative, opportunistic?
Corporates, meaning as co-investors?
Yes, exactly. Again, the example of Starship was pretty clear in terms of there was a big consortium of industrial companies behind that. There are some other companies you typically work closely together, or just mostly opportunistic based on the deal you find
Not
the companions as they come.
not in particular, but of course, there are not so many, especially in Switzerland, not so many corporates, investors, meaning that we know each other, and of course we had some deals together, but there are not kind of strategic partnerships ongoing at the moment.
Then talking about the platform for open innovation, I think if I can remember, you are using two platforms. Can you explain how do they work and what the goal of this platform? How you are dealing with the external networks? Again, there is something that is more inbound, outbound. So how do you work that?
Yeah, so we are actually leveraging several platforms for open innovation. We have actually a platform that is acting like a startup CRM, I would say, where we really follow the stages of the types of collaboration with startups, might be open innovation, collaboration, or investments. So this is the kind of platforms we do have, but rather for internal management of the collaboration with startups. And we do have the same kind of platforms as well for the academic partnerships, where you can really think about how do you connect with the academic world. So those are the platforms, digital platforms we are using in order to manage our networks in the most efficient way, right? Plus, then we have external platforms or partners that we leverage as well. For instance, in the startup ecosystem, we do have a plug and play, like a kind of global partner. We are actually partnering in the supply chain vertical that they do have. We have also partners in the form of Swissnex, for instance, an organization that you know, Alberto, I think, which is actually offering the connections over their own networks in specific ecosystems like Shanghai or San Francisco and so on. So this is the kind of platforms, physical or digital, that we've been using.
If you would provide some advice to some of your peers, and just to tell what are 2-3 things that really help you in properly doing your job. Again, what should be the tips, and maybe a couple of things that you have learned that didn't work. So what you say?
I would say first, we are talking about open innovation and venture capital and so on. But
Yes.
Open innovation starts for me very much, for instance, internally. So you are thinking about external, no. Think carefully about also your internal networks, right? So once you identify the external insights, how do you promote, push, facilitate the development in-house, internally? And that's very important. And I think that's where actually a lot of corporates are doing it, maybe not in the best possible way. That's what I noticed, right? Yeah. And the second one I would like maybe to mention is about the venture, the corporate venturing, the venture capital. Okay. I also see many corporates starting with venture capital, having no experience, okay, and expertise by working with startups. And they start directly with venture. I think it's wrong. We really went step by step. So we really build up our startup ecosystems, first in Switzerland, then in Europe, then globally. We push collaboration. We had success stories with startups. We were able to convince the management. Then we started our venture capital. And then we have this ability actually to leverage the collaboration with startup in different ways. But it has taken many years, to achieve where we are now. So that's also a kind of advice I would like to hand over. Go step by step, had success stories, and then you will have the commitment of your management as well.
So based on what you just said, and by the way, it is totally reasonable with what you are seeing in multiple corporate, and the larger the corporate, typically, the larger the problem is. Most of the most of the barriers are internal rather than external. Again, external, there are plenty of solutions. The problem is when you find a solution, assuming you find the right solution, but it's not that complicated, is to make sure that the solution might be implemented internally. And internally, there is not a sort of rejection or some most of the time it's just parking aside again. Oh, this is interesting. We will definitely do a pilot, and then
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for this opportunity to share. Always happy to share best practices and experience. And of course, keep in touch. Thank you, Alberto.
Bye.
Bye.